Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome to Mastery, the show and podcast for brilliant spiritual beings like you having a human experience, ready to ignite the mastery inherent in you, as well as grow and expand from within and wanting to lead with love in work, business, and life. Designed to activate the mastery already within you, here we merge the worlds of seen and unseen, magic and miracles with the mundane and the practical, spirituality with strategy, the energetic with the physical, and business and work with a whole lot of love and soul. I'm your host, teacher, spiritual business coach, and radical love rebel, Maria Serafina. And it is my deep honor, my great pleasure, and joy to share this episode with you. I serve leaders, executives, and business owners wanting to learn and be supported as they navigate leading with heart and soul. I do that through the Spiritual Leadership Academy, the Spiritual MBA, and one-on-one spiritual business coaching, all of which you can find out more about on my website, mariaserafina.com. The number one thing my clients always tell me they leave our sessions with is clarity, which is why I've transformed the process I've used for almost a decade, Divine Clarity and Aligned Action, into a free guide for you. Go to mariaserafina.com/DCAA to download it. In less than 60 minutes, this will give you peace of mind, crystal clear clarity, and guide you in plotting your path and next step. If you enjoy Mastery, please do subscribe, like, comment, share, or leave a review to amplify the energy and love being shared in these transmissions so it can reach more and more gorgeous, radiant beings just like you. Today I am joined by the radiant soul that is Erick Thürmer. Erick is a fourth-generation CEO of the family business Thürmer Tools, a manufacturing company founded in 1898. Located in Denmark, Thürmer Tools delivers products and solutions to global clients. As a visionary and unconventional leader, Erick is solidly grounded in doing what's right, causing him to make the production more local and green, as well as securing the business for the future and contributing positively to society and its people. Erick understands that for organizations to thrive in an exponential world, one in which the speed, scale, and almost zero cost of disruptive innovations are transforming society as we know it, companies need to take great risks and challenge the status quo in order to survive. Acting on this belief, Erick disrupted his great-grandfather's more than 125-year-old tool business into a successful, modernized, purpose-driven 3D business, turning his archaic family business into a universal company that scales learning over efficiency, collaboration over competition, speed over scale, and purpose over product. In this sacred conversation, Erick openly shares his spiritual journey in all of its messy glory. May it serve you as inspiration no matter where you are in your own journey. Here is today's episode. Erick, a very big and a very warm welcome to Mastery. When I shared the idea of Mastery, the podcast, with one of my dear friends, she immediately mentioned your name. And when I started stalking you online, I was like, oh, this is a person I really, really want to have a sacred conversation with. And you said yes. So this is wonderful. Would you start by just introducing you to us and to the world?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. I also look very much forward to this because my day-to-day life is being a manufacturer of cutting tools for the industry around Europe and house building and automotive. So I think they allow me to be spiritual, but it's not. It doesn't seem that it's top of mind. No, but I'm Erick Rosenvinge Thürmer. I am 46 years old. I live in the northern part of Zealand in Denmark.
Yes. And you're also, because I can't help but, and I mentioned this when you came on, you have 3 generations behind you. Like you actually have your
plus one.
Oh, they're plus one. That's wonderful. It's like it's like I have the sense that your ancestors are with you even in this moment. It's very strong and very powerful to have that. Um,
Yes.
and I absolutely love how quote unquote mundane your everyday work and life is, because so often when it comes to spirituality, we have this idea of it being, very purpley and very flowy and butterflies, which I love, but it's also yeah, it's part of what I want to do with this podcast is I want to remove all of those uh not to remove, but I want to show different perspectives and different ways of spirituality in our lives today. So my very first question to you is how did your spiritual journey begin? What happened? And if you even know when it truly started.
Yeah, there's one thing, if I'm allowed to just touch upon the everyday life.
Yeah.
I sort of, I think it's a picture I saw one time. There was a unicorn. There was two unicorns,
Yeah.
and there was a unicorn in the beautiful colors of your jacket, and then there was a black and white unicorn,
Mm.
and then it says them and us being the ones with the beautiful colors. And I kind of see it like that. So I would believe like 80 to 90% of my day to day is, I think actually I feel that it's very magical, but it's hidden. It's
Yeah.
around me, inside me. I cannot put it on.
No.
So I find that to be very interesting. I'm of course still learning so much and discovering. I also think that we are in a time of big change, uh, also, especially on a spiritual level. But I hope we can elaborate on that later,
Mm,
if
mm.
you will.
Yeah,
I have a
absolutely.
lot of thoughts about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's to keep it as quick as possible so it won't bother your listeners. I grew up. My parents got divorced when I was 2 years old. My mother has always been very interested in spirituality. Um, I think my mother and father very much like each other, but they couldn't live together. And
Mm.
my mother is this larger than life spiritual person, and he would come home from the factory and dealings around the world, and then she forced him to sit and look inside a candlelight and tell her
Mm.
what he felt, and he often just felt like sleeping and doing another deal.
Yes.
Um, always thought that was interesting. That it's oil and water, but if you mix, it's very good. It will mix. No,
Mm.
nonetheless. So I grew up with that. Before I was 13 years old, I was educated within hand reading and
Mm.
dream interpretation, which is skills you really don't need when you're on that age, and you're starting to find that women are interested, girls are interesting. Um, so that made me kind of weird, I think, in some way. I was then sent to boarding school, which was, I think, a big savior for me.
Okay.
And I learned that at that boarding school that the spirituality that was not a thing we could use
Mm.
there. So that was very materialistic and um, on the outside and not the inside. Um, and then I think I like threw it away a little bit.
Mm.
Um, and I became, and that's actually the most interesting thing. I haven't thought about this for a long time, but I became someone I didn't like.
Mm.
Uh, um, and that's probably because I became extremely good at being what I was, but it was probably not aligned with the soul mission or what I am supposed to be, which
Yeah.
I still do not
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
fully. I'm still
Yeah.
discovering.
And
Um,
how did you become how did you A, discover that you become someone that you didn't like, and how did you do you know how you became that person
yeah, by design,
by design?
uh, by
Mm.
my own design. I figured out. I saw that people that was very funny and very extrovert, were very good at socializing.
Yeah.
I don't think I was particularly good at it, but I became the master of it. But that also came with a lot of alcohol, and I always try to tell my kids that they have no idea how hard it was for me to start drinking and smoking. I used so much effort. But it was a very unhealthy way of living, and a very unhealthy way of using, for me, women, people around me. I think I always had a good heart. I hope so, but I became something that was not supposed to be. That then led me into more and more difficulties, if you will.
Challenges.
You know, the universe has a way of, if you don't listen, they will make you listen, right?
Yep. I call them rude awakenings, or I call them bitch slaps from the universe.
I never heard a bitch slap, but it sounds good. So I can see now that in my 20s that the spirituality was touching, knocking on the door more and more. I didn't listen. And then we got I was starting actually a little bit. It's very interesting. I saw a movie called Yes Man. I always had this ability to feel other people, which also was very hard for me. Because I had no skills in how to shut it down or filter what I felt. So that was very confusing. So I was watching that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey, and I decided that I needed change. So I just said, okay, I'll do it. I'll just say yes to everything. And that led me to some weird things, like going with a Russian clairvoyant that was translated from Russian to Swedish. I tried the most crazy things by saying yes to everything. But it was very interesting 6 months in my life. We then, my wife and I then got a daughter that was born at 850 grams.
Premature.
I think they call it extremely premature, and we went through 16 revivals of her. And I think at that point that kicked a lot of the things I have been working on the years before, and my interest. I think you often turn to God in difficult times.
Oh yes.
So the weird thing was, this place is called it's Rigshospitalet in Copenhagen. And my mother used to work there at it's called Neonatalklinikken. It's where you deal with premature babies. She knew the professor there, and the professor was also the director of the Danish Ethical Society. We had some pretty interesting conversations, because I never met a clinical doctor that believed in God. Or professor for that matter. And when we went through the when we went through the revival number 12 or 14, I don't even remember anymore. I was sitting in his office and I said, so what now? Because it looked very bleak, everything. And he said, at this point, Erick, I think we have only God and numerology left. I said, numerology? I've only come to know numerology as a very uncool thing. And I said, if you work with the things I do long enough, you see things that cannot be explained. So I found a numerologist, and the interesting thing was that the person said that I'll of course fix your baby, but the problem is you. We need to work on you. You don't have much time left. And that was true. I was feeling really, really awful.
Yeah.
So we changed the name for the baby, and yeah, that seemed to work very good.
Yes.
And
Yes.
a lot of things happened I'm not able to explain.
No.
And then we started working on me, and it seemed that my name was very bad, like really,
Yeah.
especially.
I love the face you did. Like then we started working on me, and it's like
Yeah,
it's like oh, because we know, like I know that feeling of oh, then you got to work on me. Like yeah, you get it.
it
That's
was.
I mean
It
yes.
was
So
there was a big work we had to do,
yes,
and the
yes,
whole transitioning of changing name was also very hard, honest, because I
yes,
probably still do, but at that point I lived in and around a social circle where it was like looked down upon in
yes,
a big
yes,
way.
yes, yeah,
So that was kind of weird. And
yeah,
at that point I also just want to share everything I found with everybody. And
yes,
now I'm more like a push-pull thing, like if people
yes,
want to hear,
yes,
and if they
yes,
just become a little bit like, I
yeah,
stop, I don't talk.
yes, yes,
So no, but I actually ended up then being an educated numerologist, which was
yeah,
really weird, running an industrial company.
yes,
And I have a very big interest in understanding how, like, I don't want to go too much into numerology or astrology, but there's a big I believe there's a larger force behind the alignment of the
mm,
universe
mm,
in terms
mm.
of what
Yes,
and who we are and what
yes,
we have to live out.
yes,
And there's, we can work with light grids, we can work with numerology, we can work with
yeah,
astrology, but basically, for me, it comes down to your fate. Um,
mm,
there's a lot of people who's not allowed during this life teaching to change their name, and therefore
yes,
they have to think it's super stupid. So I
yeah,
see how it works with the hen and the egg, or the
yes.
yeah. No,
No, I
yeah. So to finish what you asked me, I'm sorry, I
yes,
often
go
ramble.
ahead.
So yeah, I became an educated numerologist. I then went on and took a formal education as a clairvoyant.
Yeah.
That took 8 years. So that was a big job. And yeah, got into teaching about angels and things we don't see. And this was interesting because at this point I started going to school. This is around, now we're in 2015 or something like that, and the
Yeah.
company was growing quite a lot. I was starting to understand that I actually had an inner voice I could believe in
Mm,
and trust.
mm.
And I was going to this school in Silicon Valley. I just need to ask if you're still there because my
Yeah,
computer did
I'm still
something
here.
weird. Oh,
I am
that's
still here.
wonderful.
Yes,
Good,
no, I'm still here. You're probably just stopped. Yeah, no, I'm still here. You went to
good, good.
school in Silicon Valley, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that school. I just have to wait for my computer to do something.
Go
You're there
ahead.
still, and yeah. No, I have just a very little Maria and a very little Eric now, but
Well,
probably okay.
maybe
Ah,
maybe
that was
the
a big Maria now. Holy moly! Hi,
okay.
Maria. Good. No, so I went to Silicon Valley to be educated within quantum computing and
Oh,
artificial intelligence. That's, that
in
was weird
2015?
because yeah. So,
Wow,
so
okay.
suddenly, I became I could understand through quantum computing how everything works. So
Yes.
it was
Yes.
like my two worlds was merging.
Yes.
And yeah, so and you know the interesting thing was the people that was invited to go to that school was they wanted to educate 1,000 people that could potentially help 1 billion people
Yeah.
live a better life. That was like the idea of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just remember the first day at school, like it was the director of NSA, it was the general of the armed forces in Holland, like the founder of TEDx. Like I was like, why am I here? But all of them was doing something called ayahuasca,
Yes.
and I found that to be so interesting. So yeah, some of those people brought me to some sessions, and the first time I was sure I was dying. Like
Yeah.
I threw
Yeah.
up black water for 12 hours, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's not for everybody. I'm happy I did it. I'm probably not going to do it again. I did it 2, 3 times.
Yeah.
It's been very beautiful. The disclaimer for me within ayahuasca is that you have to be very acute that it is the big reliever of your ego, and
Mm,
we need a certain amount of ego
mm.
to survive in this world. So,
Yes. Yes, to be
but
grounded.
it's also like it's like one night being slapped with 10,000 hours at a psychologist, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it does do some things,
I've
but
heard.
yeah, it propelled me into this total new life, and cleansed me of a lot of ugliness from
Yes.
former life and this life, and many mistakes I've done. I made so many mistakes.
Yes.
Um,
Well, that's life. I mean, if we don't make mistakes, then how are we supposed to, I don't want to say make it right, but know the right and the wrong. And the thing about mistakes is that those can usually be apologized for and corrected. Oftentimes we live in a world and a society where we tend to think that mistakes are like mortal sins, and they're not. We have a tendency not to want to forgive people if they're making a mistake. However, making a mistake I find to be human, and so allowing people to make mistakes, and then also for them, if you know, if someone is hurt or upset during that, to come back and apologize. I mean that's one of the biggest lessons. I don't have children, but I have nephews, and I know that I've had some incidents where I've had to be like, oh no, I messed up, and I've had to gone back and say, you know what, that wasn't right, and I'm really sorry about that. To be owning that apology. Um, I love the analogy that you used in terms of computing, because I use that all the time in terms of the universe, because it's so much like a computer. It's so much like once I don't want to say have the codes or the access codes, because I don't want to make it to be something that nobody can access. We can all access it. It's about finding the way within, and then accessing that quote unquote computer. The universal database is what I call it. I've had times in my life where I've found solution to things that I have no idea how to do. I've never learned. And then just by tapping within, a solution will appear. And it's like, huh, is it really that simple? Does that make sense? Yeah.
yeah, but I think they changed the system. And I wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my teaching and a lot of the things I learned is like let's say manifesting. Like I could project some picture inside of my head, and it will be like that, and
Yeah.
then I will go there, and that
Yeah.
will come into fruition, right? And I think they changed the matrix.
Oh,
They made new rules.
do you think it has to do with the new age that we've entered? Because
Yes, the
because we
fifth
went.
dimension, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also, I don't know if it's changed or if it's elevated, because the more of us doing the work, the more of us doing energy work, the more of us changing, you mentioned numerology, and you've obviously also worked a shit ton on yourself and released a lot of, well, I call it released, and you've brought yourself into alignment. So the question is whether or not, quote unquote, they changed the matrix, or whether you have stepped into a new world. Does that make
I
sense?
haven't thought of it like that, but it
Yeah.
resonates a lot when you say it.
Because
Mm,
the
mm, mm,
more we
mm.
release,
I I do
like,
believe that I have elevated into something new. I do acknowledge that I'm kind of having a hard time understanding this new reality.
oh,
Um, and what do I want to say? It's a little bit like this reality. It's a little bit like a puzzle where before I could just see. Well,
mm,
I see an
mm,
iPhone and then
mm.
I'll
Yes,
manifest it. Here, it's different. It's a little
yes,
bit like the puzzle. You have to put together different pieces, and
mm,
then. But manifestation is a different thing. It's not because it's a little bit like, oh my God, I wish for a Porsche car, and then I try to manifest it. But it's different. It's also different what you
yes.
want in this reality.
I was just gonna, so it's so funny because the newsletter that, the day that I'm of recording, the newsletter that I'm sending out has to do with where does your desires and your ambitions come from? And oftentimes they come from something that is external. And I mean, I don't mind, if you want a Porsche, go ahead. But the question is, the sense that I'm getting right now that this has to do with your heart, it's connected to your heart. And where does your desires and your ambitions and your what you quote unquote wanting to manifest come from? Do they come from an external perspective or do they come from your heart? And it feels like you have stepped into a new reality. And for me, it's all about alignment. When you're in alignment with your essence, when you're in alignment with your heart, with your truth, and with your soul, a lot of what we used to want will fall to the wayside because we recognize that they're temporary, they're not permanent. And what you want is the permanent, I don't want to say permanent state because we're still having a human experience, but the deep level of satisfaction that can come from just being and from having done the work is to me beyond this world and mind-blowing. And it's nothing to do with Porsches or iPhones. It's got everything to
I,
do.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. I have friends that has companies that do like half a billion or billion
Yeah.
dollars in turnover that right now don't even want to run their companies. They're literally
Exactly.
sitting on a beach or literally sitting at a lake.
Yes.
But that also comes with doing too much ayahuasca in my mind. Like they
Okay.
literally
Yeah.
come to a point with
Yes.
like external things
Yes.
like really don't matter.
Yes. Yes.
And but you have to be very sure that you want to go there because
Yes.
there's also a life to be lived.
100%.
And another disclaimer is, as I've seen it, is it's extremely important to do this journey with your spouse or whatever you have, because if you don't do that, you
Yeah.
basically become another
Yes.
being, right?
Yes.
So it's also and also coming to the realization that it's not for all, and also in regards of family, like
Yes.
I think one of my biggest issue now is that I really actually don't care what people think,
Yes.
and I have to work on. Uh, it was
Yes.
such a fulfilling energy trying to make people see my point of view,
Mm,
me being the alpha,
mm,
and it's
mm,
such a empty room and a void not wanting that, and
mm.
I'm really struggling to figure out what my happiness is and purpose, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm working on right now.
So one of the things, though, in terms of I've never done ayahuasca, I've heard about and I've heard people have amazing experiences as well. The one thing I will say about because what you're doing is it's a mind expanding drug. No matter what you do, no matter what type of drug you do, it can expand your mind. And one of the things that's really, really important is the grounding. Because if we look at it from an energetic perspective, what you're doing is you're opening all of your chakras, you're opening all of your energy and it's usually upwards and outwards. But if you're not grounded, because as spiritual beings having a human experience, we came here for a reason. And through what I've, through my work, both personally and with clients, what I see is that we have this tendency, because once we recognize that we are far beyond what we can see with our physical eyes, we don't understand, why are we not there? Why are we not in the oneness of the universe? So we want to take off, but in order for us to do what we came to do, to be what we came to be, we have to do that through our physical bodies. And so we have to make sure that we're still grounded into earth. And what it sounds like some of your friends are experiencing might be that they have the what's tethering them to their bodies and to the world and to the earth is very, very it's untethered. It's not like a solid anchor. And so they would need to be anchored back into the physical world and incorporate what they've done and what they've experienced. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yes. And so
much that I don't have anything to say.
Yes. And so we can, after this recording, I will share some things that I recommend in terms of for them, what can happen, what you can share with them in terms of anchoring them back into. And this is not to do, so it's not about letting go of what they've experienced. It's not about abandoning what happened. It's more about incorporating and embodying it afterwards. So yeah, so because I was at one point in my life when I sort of had my, I don't know what to say, because it's still ongoing. My spiritual awakening is still ongoing. But it was like, it's not about, we often talk about elevation and we talk about ascension in the way of we're becoming so spiritually evolved that we're just going to say, see ya suckers, and take off. But what I know, that seems like that's the whole thing. That's like in most of the spiritual community, that's what it's about. It's like, bye, I'm off. But what I've found is that those of us
my new fifth dimension planet is pretty cool and full of unicorns, and yours is dark.
Yes.
I think we are going to be here, all of us. Yeah.
Exactly. And what I've found is that what I realize is that, again, like I said, in order for me to do what I came here to do, I need this physical vessel. I need this physical body to do that. And so I am in love with my physical self, my physical vessel, because it allows for me to express.
Are you really?
What?
Are you really in love with your? I would love to feel like that.
Yes, because it's what allows for me to come together with you right now, having this sacred conversation. It's what allows for me to share this with the world. So that's like, and it brings me so much joy. And so yes, I am. There's been times in my youth when I didn't. There were times when I just wanted to take off, when I did not understand, why am I here? Please, God, take me out of my misery.
Yeah.
But instead, what I've done is I've incorporated it. I connect with my heart. I'm aligned with my truth. I share my joy, and yeah. So yes, but this is not about me. This is about you. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you shared about how you got so excited and you wanted to share it with the world, but how did you start to incorporate it, and even how do you use it on a daily? How do you use your spirituality in your work, or at work, or how do you go ahead? I don't know,
it's a little bit of a story, and I'll try to keep it light, short, and fun,
or make it deep, dark, and long. You can do we embrace all of it here.
Cool. Yeah, so I went to that school, came back. I just want to point out, I don't have any political colors or views. And I had at that point never met any politicians in my life, not even a mayor. So I come back to the office, and being in Silicon Valley and disruption and AI and quantum computing, and then coming back to a cutting tool manufacturing factory. That was quite weird, and I started changing everything, and I did maybe a little bit too fast. I built a rule that was a little bit like the movie Fight Club. the rule in Fight Club is there's no rules, and that was what I did also, and that was kind of crazy. No, I got one of the big things that happened was I got a call from the Prime Minister's office saying, "Oh, hello, the Prime Minister would like to drink coffee with you. When do you have time?" I'm like, this is so much a prank call. And I started laughing, and I ended up hanging up. And then the boss of the Prime Minister's office called me again and said, "We got disconnected." And I was like, shit. No. So I went to coffee with the Prime Minister, and I was like, what is this? And the Prime Minister was very kind and said, we have to do something new, and we want to build something called the Disruption Council, and we want you to be a part of building it. I was like, oh, okay, because, I'm dyslexic. I was really, really bad in school. And I have just been happy that I'm a pretty good merchant, good in buying and selling things, and that kept me alive. Or I'm a good salesman. That's kept me alive. So no. So suddenly I found myself there with the top of Danish society at a meeting, trying to build the Disruption Council, and having meetings with all the ministers and the top of the Danish companies, international companies, and and then suddenly someone said, "You also have to do some public speaking." I was like, public speaking? How could I do that? And I think I've always been pretty funny, but that's my view. It doesn't mean that other people find it funny. But I at least I tried to be, because that was a part of my access to life. That was being entertaining. So for some reason, I was like really, really good at public speaking, and I loved it. Yay. And suddenly I did like 70 public speaks a year. And I was the most sought after public speaker in America and Scandinavia, highest paid. It was such a weird thing, being such a loser and then suddenly like mingling with everybody.
Hold on. So there is a difference between a difference between feeling like a loser and then being a loser. Those are two different things. And I just want to
I felt so fake. Like it was like, I hope they won't figure out who I really am.
Yes, exactly. And that's something, and again, that's what I say, that there's a difference between feeling something and being something. And I mean, yes,
I totally agree on that. I'm just trying to also open for you and your audience, opening up to who and what I was at that point.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So I did a lot of that. Started living extremely unhealthy. If you do like 70 plus public speaking, like sometimes I even had days where I did 4 public speaks a day, and one of my speaks would probably do like 1.5 hours.
Wow.
I was killing myself slowly. But the thing is, there was a lot of energy within this, because there was a lot of fame. There was a lot of you're really, really cool. And there was a lot of money in it, which also was a very big interest, because I could use the money for fueling our company. Because at that point we started working on, that was why I was in Silicon Valley, we started working on 3D printing. And my view of fixing the world was localized, sustainable production on demand, where we reuse materials. I won't bother you too much about that, but that it seems that world is coming now. No,
good. It needs to come. Yes.
I'm not one of these people that is very afraid of the climate. The climate is what it is, but everything in this room and in your room comes from Earth. So I think if we just maybe use a little bit less, that would
Yes.
Because the
Yes.
public perception is use a lot of money, take care of the planet. It's
Those are
contradictory. It's weird.
no, yeah, they're not. And also, I mean, I'm not. So the thing about, and this might also be controversial in terms of climate, because for me, and I don't even want to sound doomsday like, but it's, I think that the Earth will be fine. Humans will be killed off. Like we probably won't survive, but the Earth will be fine. It will regenerate itself, and then new life forms will appear. And I know that that might sound controversial, but that's that because yeah, that's my take on
Like
it. Sorry.
Earth doesn't care. Earth came of lava and will end up in lava, so it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
But we have to have a nice experience with our co-friends, people, while we're here.
Yes.
And climate is
Yes.
probably a part of that. No, so then I became like Mr. Famous, and there was one year, I think that was in 2018 or 19. There was 82 front page articles about me, my wife, and our company on Danish newspapers, Scandinavian newspapers. I was constantly in TV.
Nice.
And that was really weird because it was, I think somehow I created a persona that was not me. Like,
yes,
I'm Eric, and then this is, that's that guy that does the public speaking and the
And is that
things.
what you meant when you said loser? Is that like because so you're actually saying that you became a loser? Like that's what you're saying?
No, but it's just people that like this. I've been in business for 20 years. I've never seen an overnight success. Like people that are successful, they work 10, 20 years and becoming like masters.
Really?
And then they become successful, right? And this was weird because it was like the one day to another. So but it came with a lot of things, you know. I remember Brian Mikkelsen, the Minister of Business. I think we were incorporated in over 60 of his public speaks. It was so weird, everything. Like I had to do public appearance with the now Queen Mary, with the King. Our daughter was invited to give flowers to the Queen. Like it was literally like, am I going to wake up from this? And then, so what I did, because I had such a hard time being in it, I drank quite a lot. I always loved alcohol. I found it to be the most amusing thing you could do.
Yes.
And it always gave me another gear. I never became an alcoholic, but I simply needed to, because what I see now is that the energy that was from above put into me so I could become a dynamo for others was so strong that very often I could not, I did not have the capability of standing in that light. So I drugged myself with Treo, Panodil, and alcohol. And alcohol is, so your audience don't think I'm like a hardcore alcoholic, was maybe 4 drinks every evening to calm down. Today I don't drink at all. I've not been drinking alcohol for 2.5 years, but that's because I needed to stop, and I needed to stop for standing in the light that I'm supposed to, and I need to be able to be more of myself more of the time, and liking what I'm supposed to be.
Who I am.
Like Maria does.
Yes, who you are.
So, and then, you know, in the middle of all that and being famous and being invited to all kinds of things, there was this lady coming up like, oh, hello, Eric. Oh, I was meaning to contact you. It was in reception, I think. And said, I want you to write a book. And I was supposed to write a book about the company. It was going to be called Thürmer in 3D. Because of the company being 125 years and me rebuilding it and doing some very controversial things. So I still don't know why I did, but something worked through me. I'm very acute aware that when the most magical things happen, it's usually not me doing it. I'm more like a vessel.
Your channel.
You know that feeling?
Yes.
Channeling it.
It's why I don't call myself, people call me a healer, but I don't call myself a healer because I'm not the healer. What happens comes through me. It's got nothing.
Totally
It's not
Maria.
true that it's not got nothing to do, but it's like things are coming through me. So yes, I'm a channel. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
I
The
agree.
book.
So,
Yeah.
and then I was like, I wrote the contract for the book, and it was going to be a big thing. And I was like sitting after, I think, a dinner party. It was the fall, the leaves were running around outside. And I was like, shit, how am I supposed to write this book? I'm dyslexic. It was literally like, oh my God.
I forgot.
I totally forgot. So I called up this woman and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm not able to write this book. I'm dyslexic. And I'm so sorry I didn't tell you when we wrote the contract. It slipped my mind. It's like, honey, it's no problem. Like, no leaders are writing their own books. You'll get a ghostwriter. She'll just write whatever you say. It's going to be super easy. I'll find a beautiful one for you, so it's not boring.
Okay.
I got a beautiful one, and to an extent where it was almost making me not able to concentrate, but
Yeah.
happily I worked through that. No, nonetheless, we ended up with a book. I've obviously not have had a baby. I have 3 kids, but I've never tried to give birth. But people say that it's the same feeling, and
Yes.
it's such a beautiful thing to write a book, but
Yes.
it's also so hard. So it took a year. In the end of it, it ended up being called the Spiritual CEO.
Yes. Yes.
And
But it's only in Danish, right? The spiritual CEO is only in Danish, or is it out in English as well? Because I want to make sure that
not
if it's in English,
not
I
not
link
not
to it.
not not yet.
Okay,
They're
good.
negotiating. I'm not a part of the process, but they're
Okay, good.
negotiating
Because
with
I will
someone
be
in the US.
linking to the Danish version. So for anyone who's Danish, I will be linking to the
We
Danish.
have to do a disclose, just saying it's really bad.
Well, you know, you live and you learn. And I also want to
The
emphasize.
funny thing I wanted to say was something that hit me very hard was the main Danish newspaper, Berlingske Tidende. They wrote 3 pages on how super bad this book was, and they took it as a business book and not as a spiritual book. And that made me so sad. But you know, the woman that hired me to write it, she was like, "Oh, that's wonderful! It's wonderful. Now it's going to be a bestseller." And for I think 3 or 4 weeks, it became a bestseller in Denmark. And you know, I had to go to Good Morning Denmark and all these kind of things. And it was another one of these experiences where I was like, am I living this, or is this true? What is this? So and it became so good that they asked me to write a sequel that I wrote with our spiritual guide, which is called, I have to find it, I don't know why I can't remember the name. It's called Career
career with soul and heart
and hjerte. And I had this teacher for many years called Isabel. And we ended up then writing the book together.
Nice.
And this is actually a really good book, but
nice. I will link to that as well.
It did
and
not
also,
get us
you can always
famous.
do the spiritual CEO. You can always do like the spiritual CEO 2.0. Like you can always do an upgraded version of the book if ever you wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think what I want to do is I have an idea at some point when I get educated enough. I want to do a book called Becoming Erick, but I'm not there yet. So let's see.
Becoming the spiritual CEO.
Yeah, but you know, so that led me into a lot of things. But the book was trying to get back on track. The book was my way of becoming open about my spirituality and having my colleagues' workforce accepting that this is the way I run things. And that was also a big part of the interviews in all the TV stations we went to, like where they were basically interviewing my employees, saying, "How is it working with a nutcase like that?" And that was actually a very beautiful experience. And so that it made me into what I was supposed to be, and it hurt quite a bit, you know, but it worked out fine in the end.
How does, because I just want to emphasize, so in terms of dyslexia, like dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence at all. Like there's like, I don't want to underscore, but I just want to emphasize that. And you're a beautiful example. I have other friends who are dyslexic who are brilliant entrepreneurs as well. So you can absolutely do that. And how do you, so how do you use your spirituality in your daily life or in your corporate life now? You've mentioned that you mentioned numerology, astrology, and also clairvoyance. So how do you, if anything, how do you use it on a daily basis in your corporate life? If it's
I
something.
use it quite a lot. Okay, are you okay? I'll just finish a little
Go
bit
ahead. Go ahead.
from book to now,
Yes.
because I very much want to share this. Also hear your thoughts on if I'm doing it right. Okay, so all this led to like a road that I thought was. I was sitting having lunch with the Minister of Business, and said, and you know, we're so famous for doing the 3D printing, and the company was growing, and I said, so what's next after the Disruption Council? And he just looked at me, and I was sitting with this also beautiful woman called Mia Wagner, who also did a lot of beautiful work on business politics and also understanding the softer side of life, right?
Yes.
And he said, you're becoming a politician, obviously. I was like, a politician? I don't know. I didn't at that point. I didn't even know what I wanted if I was a politician or which color I would be. And he said, and by the way, you're conservative. All Danish people are. They just don't know it. And like it was literally. I came home to my wife and said, I'm going to be a politician. And she's like, okay, whatever, dude, whatever. And we had no knowledge, any of us, about becoming a politician. And then, I went to, of course, you being Danish, Søren Pape, the head of the Conservative Party. I met with him, and he said, "Oh, you're going to be the lead candidate for the Conservative Party in Northern Zealand, and congratulations." It was so weird. And what I didn't know at that point was people in politics, at least the ones that make it, they work like from the age of 12, 14 in youth politics, and suddenly this annoying person who wrote a really shitty book and have other thoughts came and just took their spot. So I got very unpopular, and that was weird because, I came from a life. I never say that things are in a certain way. I always just basically ask questions. Maybe things are like this. Could this be? And then people can put in what they want. And then if you have the push-pull system that you don't say too much, then people kind of like you and they want you to succeed. Suddenly I was in an environment where everybody wanted me not to succeed. So long story short, I then became the lead candidate and I started doing politics, and it was so fake. Everything was so fake. The thing I was doing, I was fake. And they really, really didn't like me. So I was starting to hear.
But did you like yourself?
No, not at all. No, but I had a strong feeling that I was supposed to do all of this. It was like the natural progression of the 7-year period. Like, of course, I'm going to be a politician. And so then the former prime minister that I met through the Disruption Council, he was starting a new party. He wanted to be in the middle of social democrats and conservatives, and he wanted to call it the moderates. So I called the former minister of business and said, the former prime minister very well. It seems that he's trying to build some kind of think tank or something. Do you think you could ask if he wants to meet with me if I didn't scare him off too much? And I got a call from from his secretary that he could come for lunch, and he came here for lunch, and we had a very pleasant time. And in the end, I said, do you think you could use me for anything?
Yes. Yeah.
And I said, yeah, let's do that. So go out of the Conservative Party, but do it in a good way. Don't slam the door. Be a kind person.
Yeah.
And I think they were very confused that I left, because if you get to be the lead candidate for parliament for the Conservatives, you don't give that up easily. But so they were very confused. So a big part of them really wanted to get rid of me, but they also was lacking a candidate that was pretty well known.
Yeah.
I always say that I'm not a known person. I'm business known.
Yeah.
And then I started working with the former Prime Minister and learned from him. And I remember 1st of June 2022, he called me up and said, you have 2 weeks to write our politics on immigration and startups. And I was like, what? Yeah, we are becoming a party in April. It's no longer a project. But I called my wife that I have to do the whole politics. How many pages and things like that? Is it 1 pager? Is it a 10 pager? And we were laughing so much. She was like, you can't do that, Eric. Don't do it. You will fuck it up. Somehow I did not fuck it up. I was helped. I truly, Maria, somebody did that. It's literally like I didn't do it. I don't even remember.
But it also sounds like based on what you've shared, whenever people seek you out and say, this is what you're supposed to do, it seems like that's when it goes off. And whenever it's something that you're seeking out, that's when the channel, and that's usually what happens when we're connected, when we're connected with our heart, with our soul, with our essence, and we're moving forward, then we're following those clues, we're acting on those clues as well. And that sounds like what you've been doing. And when you do that, that's when things align, things flow, things are easier, even though there still be challenges. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. I never thought of it in the system that you explained. So that's and I want to also agree with you. Yes, it's not easier. It's like you didn't put an effort into it. It just happened through you. I think maybe a little bit like if I asked you to heal my big big toe, it would probably not be a hard work for you, right? It would just be so then became a party, and then I became the second lead in Northern Zealand in that new party, and then this problem starting occurring, because at that point, I think, we often use this term called burned out, stressed. I'm not a guy who gets stressed so easily because I have a very big attention span. And also, if you have some type of influence on your reality, you tend to get less stress. I believe somehow it's not a perfect answer, but So, but I think I was on the edge of being burned out, maybe already around COVID. So I just kept working and working and working, and becoming more and more unhealthy, drinking more and more. I was saving a small local school. I was doing the politics. People don't know that when you're not in running for the parliament, you have everyday work, but people have everyday lives and work they have to go to. So, and they do it for free. So politics is done from 4 in the afternoon to 8 in the evening. And they always serve beer or wine. And I started simply, to be very honest, I started drinking to just don't feel the pain of being there. So I would be like, let's have this meeting, and I'll literally drink 2 glasses of wine just to be able to be there. And then I'll do like 1 or 2 treos to just feel not shitty. And then because I was constantly doing public speaking, constantly meetings, constantly politics, constantly all this, Also at that point, I did a lot of work with, when you come out with a book, you have to do book tours and things like that. So I was never home, and I basically ate all my meals at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So I hit some kind of wall around there.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is that when the former prime minister went up after the election and said, "Oh, we are the leading party," it was my mandate that was missing, because I actually got a really, really good election. I got a lot of personal votes, but the mandate went to the Social Democrats with 400 votes, which is very little. So I became what do you call that in English, Maria? Supplant.
Yeah, the stand-in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, my wife and I went home from the election party, and we built something. In 6 months. We were 40 people building something that was the third biggest party.
Yeah.
But we went home. I was sitting in our bed. I think my wife went to some other room because she couldn't probably sleep because of me. I was just thinking, like, I had this feeling of the end of something, that this was the end of something. And it was very saddening, and it was very weird, because it was supposed to be the start of something, right?
Yes.
Like literally, I attended meeting at the parliaments where my parking spot would be.
Yeah.
What my salary was going to be. Like, we were at that point, right?
Yes.
I was having media training, and then suddenly I was like, and I just went on all my social media. At that point, I was the fastest growing TikToker in Scandinavia and Denmark.
Wow. Okay.
And I deleted all accounts. I changed my thing into, because it said like public speaker. What is it you say when you're a writer?
Author.
Author. Parliament, running for parliament, candidate thing. All these things. I just went back like fabrikant.
Yes.
I don't know what
merchant.
fabrikant is in English,
it's
but
like a
producer.
Producer, like a merchant, but manufacturer is it?
Manufacturer.
Yes.
So I just went back, like, and it was so hard, and for not feeling, I couldn't bear feeling anything. So for whole of December 22, I just went on a meeting stream, going to 45 meetings in 1 month in Denmark and Faroe Islands. And then I thought I was pretty healthy, right? Because I didn't drink. At that point, I hadn't drinking for 1 year or something like that. So, but I was doing like these Red Bulls and a lot of sugar. And I've never been depressed in my life. But for the first time in January, I was like, I'm done. I was I couldn't even help myself going to the doctor. So my wife took me to our doctor, and he was annoyingly good, a little bit older than me. And he said, like, Erick, you're not burned out. Because if you're burned out, you don't come back from that.
Yeah.
But you have depleted every resources your ability.
That's the first word I heard when you started talking about this. I'm like, your systems were completely depleted. Like that's like you've depleted all of so that makes total sense.
And you see, I'm not a fat guy. I'm like a slim guy. So I figured out I'm slim fat. And I found that slim fat is actually a thing, and slim fat is not being fat on the inside. Slim fat is where you actually have more fat than you have muscles. And I ended up at a point where I just going for a 2 kilometer walk was hurting my feet at a point where I could not be inside myself. I was doing like.
I want to emphasize also that being fat has nothing to do with being fit at all, because if we look at some of the, like, someone that I think of as Lizzo, who's a very, like, she's fat and she's an artist that goes on for 3 hours. She has stamina, she has condition, so she's the living proof that fat has nothing to do with condition. It has nothing to do with being fit at all.
Totally agree.
So I just want to share that.
And to be honest, the former prime minister, he's not a all slim guy, and he
No.
can run faster and longer than I can. So
Yes, I know he's
no,
also biking. I remember back
yeah,
when I used to work for what was called at the time PBS for Nets. They were doing this cycling thing where he was part of the cycling team as well. They were doing, I don't know if they were, either way. I just wanted, because we're like, we can go on
yeah.
forever
Okay,
and
I'll just
ever.
finish it very quick so we can
Yes,
get back to
so
your
quick.
question. So
Yes.
so yeah, 2023. I stopped eating sugar. I went on a keto diet, which in itself is super depressing. Of course, not drinking. Started working out. My way back to life, Maria, has
Yes.
been the hardest physical thing I ever tried in my life. It has been. It was so awful, and just getting off painkillers in its own right was so hard.
Wow. Wow.
And I think it took from January to around August, September.
Wow.
And so I just tried to work on becoming Erick. But,
Yes.
I had many spiritual guides during my work. And yeah, the doctor sent me to a spiritual guide, which was very confusing.
I
She
love
was
that because
both
they're integrating, like they're like
right.
that's the
So
holistic
weird.
approach. Like I always, like I'm super spiritual, but I will always, if there's something physical that's ailing you, you always, always, always also see the doctor. It's not an either
Yeah.
or, it's a both and. Yes, go ahead.
And you probably know this, but the Harry Potter school exists in real life. It's called Arthur Findlay, and
Yeah.
this particular woman has an education from Arthur Findlay
Yeah.
and is a psychiatrist. So she's super interesting to learn from,
Brilliant. Yes.
because she has clinics in both worlds.
Yes.
So she
Yes.
helped me quite a lot, and now came the most interesting thing. Uh, um, how Maria? How do you translate it into spiritual English? Angst,
Anxiety.
anxiety. Okay, yeah, yeah, of course. So after 2 3 months, she was like, "You have anxiety," and I don't. That's the only thing I don't have. I have a lot of other problems, but anxiety is not one of them. And so basically, we've been working on that the last year, and it's like I'm transformed. It's a little bit, if I was a car, I'm like a new car, and I'm more efficient, and it feels better, and my suspension is very strong.
Yes.
That's the
And you
right. So
see how you need this physical vessel. You need your physical vessel to
yeah,
be
and I'm
in order
starting
to
for the
be.
first time. I just want to disclose all the bad things first, so you don't find me to be an annoying, self-happy person. But for the first time, I am beginning to see glimpse of myself that I believe that is good. And yeah, so that's where I am right now.
And that is the journey that your your spiritual work, your spirituality has taken you on.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
if you want me to elaborate on how I work with this on an everyday basis, you just,
yes.
yeah, I think it's
I
better
mean, do
you
you
ask
have
me
time?
questions.
Because I want to honor time. So if I would love for you to expand on that. I would love for you to expand on how you work with it on a daily basis, or what you do, or anything that you can share. Absolutely.
So the maybe I often use a lot of anecdotes and make fun of things, but there was a serenity, and um, there was an idea of what was to be with all the things that I was exposed to.
Mm,
And for example, the former Minister of Business, Mr. Brian Mikkelsen, he put our company and me through designed leadership. So there was
mm,
this guy, actually, we had him as a teacher called Simon Sinek, and he wrote a
mm.
book called Start With Why. So
Yeah.
we wanted to do a Danish thing of
Mm,
that. So we took the Danish Design Center
mm,
and then incorporated that with the commercial thoughts of a consultancy or something like that, where we had to say, how do we tear down the belief systems inside of a company, the hierarchical structures?
mm,
How do we implement?
mm,
So Comwell Hotels, Maersk, AP Møller Drilling, and Thürmer Tools was asked to participate. and it was an amazing experience. And one of the outcomes, the conclusion was, for example, for our company is I don't hold a job. That's also why I can speak to you, because I do not have a job. I don't have a function. I'm the owner and I have the title of CEO of the company, but I don't have, if I don't do a job, there's not something missing. So I don't have an official thing I have to do every day. I believe that me being part of everything then makes the company better. And like last week, I didn't have a lot to do, so I just started contacting new clients in Scandinavia. So that's then what I do. So, but it's fluent. And McKinsey and others have been looking a lot into what kind of thing is that, because if you have to somehow you have to have a holistic approach to inventing the future, and you have to be able to envision it, whether that being through a puzzle or envisioning it. If you don't think about the future, you won't create it. And I just see that CEOs today, they are very busy people. So when do they have time to create a new vision? That's also why I believe that you see so many awful things coming from the tech community, because it's heartless technical people doing all the development and not the people who's actually running things. So I think we're in for a major system change, and I think I'm on somehow I have by design or by default ended up being part of this new test phase of what is supposed to be. So
you're
right
part
now,
of the first wave. What I as you were talking, what I was just seeing, I saw a wave and I saw you riding the first wave. So it's sort of like you're riding the first wave. That's what I see in terms of this. And this is also what you mentioned in the beginning. You wanted to share about the world changes. So continue, please. Yes.
Yeah. So it's very lonely on that wave, by the way.
Yes, it is.
So right now you see, like, it seems that I'm constantly being fed and informed by what's to be.
Yes.
And that is a very, very hardcore thing, because the reality that I'm allowed to see is, let's just say the future is good, but we have to go through some things before.
Yes.
Yes. And the things we have to go through is like, there was one time I wanted something to do with buying companies and making some things within that space. I did some light grids and things like that, and I got exactly what I wished for. But I had no idea how much I and things around me had to change for that to come into life or into reality. So I'm very acute aware for what I wish for.
Yes. And that's why being in alignment, that's why for me, being in alignment is so important. Because when we're in alignment, what comes to us is like we shared before, it's like it's coming through us rather than ourselves, our limited selves. So go ahead, sorry.
So I agree. This change is supposed to happen. There's wish for change, but then if you want change, like big change, you have to, for example, one thing is everybody says to me, "Oh my God, Erick, the world is going crazy." That's it probably is. But one thing is to be true is that everything is coming into light. You're being able to see everything. And that's why it's crazy. I believe it's been like this for ages. It's just now we get to see it for what it is, and then you can actually change. For example, 55% of all people on the entire world are going to choose new leaders in 2024. So a lot of my work on a day-to-day basis right now is just feeling, what do I believe is going to happen in terms of war? What do I believe is going to happen in terms of economy? What do I believe is going to happen, for example, within Suez Canal? And all of these things is like plotting a course through things.
Yes.
Um,
And is it
and
more,
I just want to
believing?
show you up here
Oh, go
on this
ahead.
platter. It says that the core culture of this company is that the client, the end client, is supposed to love our product and says love.
Yes.
The people who are selling our products has to think that we are the best and easiest and nicest partner. And everybody that has to do with our company, whether that be a bank or an accountant or client or whatever it is, has to believe that they get a better life out of working with us. And that is my microcosmos, where I can actually do something in reality of all the things that I see.
Yes.
So there's a very, very large part of my day-to-day business life that is extremely spiritual.
Yes. But it also sounds like, because that's one of the questions I had was, is it more, because you said believing, like I have thoughts about believing. So but I'm not gonna share them today, but what it sounds like, it's more about you tapping into the universal database, or using your intuition and all of your senses to sort of see, hear, feel, sense, like using all of your clairvoyant senses, because like just as we have the physical senses, we have the spiritual side of that, which is the clear senses. And when we're able to, when we're able to tap into that, we can see things we cannot see, we can hear, we can sense, we can intuit things. And it sounds like that's what you're doing in terms of, you mentioned, go ahead.
Yeah, that's totally correct. But I just want to emphasize there's a change in the matrix or in the
Yes.
system, because it's a
Yes.
little bit like playing cards, and then suddenly
Yes.
they say, "Yeah, you're pretty good at playing cards, but here's Ludo, and now you have to
Yes.
play Ludo,
Yes.
and
Yes.
this different game." So there's
It's
a lot
that.
of the things that I could feel, see, hear, observe earlier
Yeah.
that is not there. I do see that there's still a
Yes.
connection, but it has to be used in a different way.
Yes.
And also, to be honest, there's this saying that because of the Akashic records and our common interaction on a spiritual and thought level, then if you want to do a Sudoku, you don't
Yes.
do it in the morning when it comes out, do it in the afternoon, because then a lot of people have been through it and it will be much easier. And there's
Yes.
statistics on this.
Oh, beautiful.
So
Yes.
let's say
Energy.
that, so let's say uh, the fourth energy that we came from was like an old energy. Let's say we were there for
Yeah.
1,000 years, and we
Yeah.
know that, and it's so easy. Now the fifth dimension,
Yes.
we don't know this yet, and very few people know it. So we know it's exactly like if you were driving your car and suddenly you were deprived of all knowledge on how to drive a car and the rules on the road.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
little bit. I don't know
But
if you have the same feeling, Maria, but it's very obscure,
yes.
but it
So
feels like that.
okay, what you're describing, so to me at least, this is my take on this. What you're describing is, you're describing the dissembling and the crumbling of the old structures. That's what's happening. And that's what you mentioned earlier. That's hard to go through. That's where the revolutions, that's where all of the uproar that happens. That's because all of the old systems and the structures are crumbling. And so we're building the new, but building the new also requires, for those of us who have come from, who are like, who've done the work, who are in our heart space, who can channel through that, because it doesn't come from the mind, it comes from the heart and from the soul of all of us. And that's how we're building. That's where the new system is blooming and being, coming up from. That's what you're describing. That's why when you mentioned the culture thing that you mentioned, it has a ripple effect out in not just your company, but out into other, because it will inspire. And this conversation as well, I am like, oof, this is good. I am thrilled. I'm so grateful that we joined, because I am sure this is going to be dropped. And it might just be seeds that are being planted. Or it might be that there's a shit ton of people and leaders out there who's like, who's this Erick guy? And we got to connect because we're all building this new world. And so that's why we need people like you, like me, like those who are listening to be part of that. And that comes from heart. That comes from, it's a new world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I remember when I started doing the public speaking, I was like, oh, how can I impact 75% of everybody sitting here? And I met one person who was really, really up there by
Yeah.
high standards of doing
Yes.
public speaking, and said, like, that's so wrong. Like, if you
Yeah.
touch like one person today
Yes.
in the right way,
Yes.
you are massively successful.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but
Yes. And that's
I
another.
always thought that revolution was like, it's big and messy and you can see it. But sometimes, like probably also you, Maria, you touch a person in a way you didn't even know, and that
Yes.
made
Yes.
ripple effects, and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
subtle. Change is
Yes.
subtle.
Yes. And there's one of my favorite quotes from there's a piece, or there's a text called A Course in Miracles. But one of my favorite pieces of that is, it says a miracle is never lost. It can touch it'll continue to ripple out. I'll share the quote in the notes, but the correct one. But it's like, I one time uh I had one of my newsletter subscribers, I had said that they could write me if they had a challenge, and I had replied to them, and then I didn't hear back from them. And I never thought of it or anything. Then I think it was almost more than a year later, I got a reply back on the email where I had shared some, suggestions, my intuition, like I'd shared some stuff. I'd come from the heart. I just shared openly what I saw for them. And she came back and she said, I just want you to know that your email has been sitting in my inbox for over a year now. Everything has come into fruition, and it has been such a light in my life. And I had no idea. And that's the thing. We never have an idea of the lives that we touch, because 99% of the people will never come back and said, you're awesome. Like we just don't do that, right? So I just wanted to emphasize that, yes, what you're saying is absolutely true. We do touch lives we don't have any idea of. We've gone on for way longer than I assumed. Is there any final words that you want to share? Anything that's left unsaid, or
I think I would very much like to thank you for providing this platform. I think it's one of the nicest interview I ever had. But I think also I'm at a point where I'm more I'm a better person than I was, and I see that when you ask me certain things, the connections within me are becoming stronger.
yes.
So I think in that way, I really enjoy you wanting to talk to me, and I think also I learned a lot from you. And when you deal with things like that you do in your everyday life, and I do, there's also a lot of fakes out there, right?
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Oh, I want to say something funny.
Go ahead.
One time I was meeting Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeshua.
and so he was coming through this clairvoyant and was sitting there, and this very beautiful woman came in, and she sat next to me, and we're discussing uh, this spiritual thing. It's called the Faroe Island House in Copenhagen. I think they do like every month. They do like something very hardcore spiritual. It's
Oh,
for all
okay.
the clairvoyant people to come and be and teach. And I don't know why I was there, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And then this I was chatting to her, and then she called me 2 months later, crying. I was like, "Hi, and how may I help you?" And she was crying so much, said that I had to pay her the bill at her clairvoyant, and I had to pay the bill for her new numerologist because I was unfaithful to her 2 lives back.
Oh no. Oh
So
no. Yes. Okay.
I don't know if you want to leave on that note, but
No, what I will share is, so one of the reasons why Mastery, this podcast, came into life was part of me owning my own mastery, because I saw that I wasn't really owning it. But one of the things, the most important things for anyone going on a spiritual journey is discernment. Is to, if you are connecting with someone who is not shining your light back at you, who is trying to put themselves on a pedestal, who thinks themselves raised above you, who then I will say run for the hills, because the and it's funny you mentioned Jesus or Yeshua, because I have another podcast called The Magdalene Voices, where I talk about Yeshua and Mary Magdalene and the Magdalenes and a whole bunch. There's a bunch of episodes over there, so I'll share the link to that. But part of that journey with Yeshua has been the usurping of, like, the easiest way to control people is to cut them off from their source. Like, just to cut them off from their physical bodies, cut them off from their source, cut them off from listening to their intuition, their inner voices, their inner guidance, and all of that. And so for me, one crucial key is discernment. Always, always, always go within, no matter who it is, whether it's something we've shared in this conversation, whether it's something you hear from someone else. Always check within. Is this in resonance? Does this rhyme for me? And explore. But if someone tells you,
Maria, I totally agree on that. But don't you also find that it's very lonely? Like there's not so many people that interest me anymore. Like if people are just their whole life is about buying things and thinking that they are spiritual because they read
yeah,
Alpha Daemon or something,
but
like
that's part of
so I
their
also
journey.
find it to be a little bit lonely, that because yeah, I'm
So
not able to explain myself.
I, I think so. For me, it's about everyone is on their own journey. Like, they have their own, the people are on their own journey. And I think that for me personally, like, I was a well-paid key account manager. I was, I had everything that you're supposed to have, like everything that you're supposed to have. And I couldn't feel my heart. So I had to quit. And I have stumbled and fallen and, gone through hell and back in order to get back to where I understood that it's not about my external appearances. It's not about having things. I love things. Don't get me wrong. I love great food. I love I love things. So it's not that I don't, but it's about recognizing that ultimately who I am has nothing to do with all of that. And it's not dependent on any of that. But I do agree. Yes, at times it is lonely, because there is times when we have to walk in the desert in order to find ourselves way back to our heart, to our essence, to our truth, before we then venture back into the quote unquote world. And I don't mean that go sitting on a rock, because I thought I went on a trip. I thought I was going to find the purpose of my life, and I ended up coaching everyone. That's how I knew that I was meant to be a spiritual business coach, because I ended up not quote unquote, I found my purpose, but or my purpose found me through what I was doing. It was already there. So yes, I do agree that at times it does feel lonely, but that is also where the connection back comes, because for me, I am always and forever connected. I am always, and even now I can feel it, just like I am always and forever connected to that which is me, but also outside of myself, that which is God or the universe or whatever you want to call it. Like, we are God made manifest in this world. We are spiritual beings having a human experience here to express that and to support and to elevate and to highlight and to, yeah, I don't know. Did that answer? So yes,
Yeah.
I do agree.
Now
Yes.
that we are so much over time, can I just ask you something?
Yes,
Are
go
we
ahead.
allowed on this channel to talk about COVID?
Sure.
Okay. Did you ever get the feeling that COVID did something to people's ability to connect?
So I am someone who sort of I never connected in with the fear of COVID. So I personally, I was in the US when COVID struck, and I thought I was going to stay there. I was on a long trip. But because I didn't have permanent residentship, not required, but I was, suggested that I go back. And so I chose to come back to Denmark because we had no idea at the time. So I think that if there was any disconnection, it was to do with the fear that was being spread in the society. Remember that everything is energy. And when fear on that level is no matter what's happening, right now we have a massive war in the Middle East. That is also fueling for good reasons, fear into the universe and into our systems. And when fear on that scale, like what happened with COVID, is pumped into the system, it really, really requires, it's very easy to disconnect. It's very easy to get separated. And it's also easy to come together. Like you asked for a reason. What's your take?
No, it's just a feeling. It's nothing. I just had that feeling that I don't know if it was the vaccines or
on a physical level, you mean? Because I know that today.
I saw people also that I know are very, very skilled clairvoyants or that kind of lost their ability. It came back. But I've never thought of it in the way you just explained, that the fear energy could have been so massive. That changed so.
And also so many souls departed, like so many souls departed at the same
there's
time.
A massive excess death going on. It's so weird what's going on. But like on a day-to-day scale, like we having 3 small kids, like there's just double the amount of diseases. Like there's constantly something going on, right? So if it's because we did for 2 years we were not sick, and we have to have a total amount of I don't know, diseases or bacteria, then hope that we soon is through it. But it was a weird thing. I think for me with the COVID thing, it was the first time was like, oh my God, this is so nice. Oh, we can just watch all the series we didn't watch. And second time I was like, oh, okay, we'll do it one more time. And I was getting a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
And the third time, that was very, I didn't get depressed, but I was on the edge of it, I would say.
Yeah.
But also because at the third time, I didn't understand it anymore. Like I couldn't understand why, like, if we can just touch upon things that are going on right now. It's not because I like either Biden or Trump, but basically we are living in a democracy. We want to sell democracy to the rest of the world in the West, and we want to make it illegal to vote for Trump. We want to make it illegal to vote for, is it AfD in Germany? It's an awful party, I believe, but nonetheless, it's democratic, right? And Viktor Orban, he doesn't want to do what the rest of EU wants, so we also want to ban him. But we are selling democracy. And when people say that we are fighting democracy with Putin and so on, it's not because I have any thing good to say about Putin. It's just, I think democracy we saw during COVID, was that democracy? Locking everybody down and not asking them? So
again, for me, go ahead.
One of my biggest things I think we have to work on is keeping our free speech. This is a point where that is something to keep secret.
I agree. And I think that a lot of free speech was closed. I mean, for me, there's difference. But again, for me, what I look at is what's being shared. Does that come from a space of love, or does it come from a space of fear? Does it come from a space of wanting communion and community, or does it come from creating division and separation? That's essentially what I am looking at when I'm looking at these things. No, I don't think that in terms of what happened during COVID. I mean, I can only speak from a Danish perspective, because that's what was my experience was. but for me, there was a lot of fear mongering. There was a lot of fear. It was a lot of fear based. And I think that we will learn from that. I mean, the, epidologist or whatever, all of the fancy doctors, we will hopefully learn from this in
Yeah,
terms of.
but I just want to say, Maria, I totally agree on that, and I think that was also a way of enforcing everything, that it has to be a little bit fear based. And if you looked at, I was participating online last week on World Economic Forum, and the whole World Economic Forum is called "How to Establish Trust." And so the
Yeah,
world leaders, they know that a lot of people don't trust their governments anymore.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
know a lot of like grown up people. I think I'm also grown up myself, but like really grown up people that like, if the states said jump in the water 3 years, 4 years ago, they would have done so. Now they're like, what the heck is going on? It doesn't make
yes,
sense.
yes,
But
yes.
I used a lot of time with military people, understanding the works of what happened through COVID. And I do see why governments did what they did, because, for example, if you are the Prime Minister of Denmark right now,
Mm,
and the mandate is you can't lose anybody,
mm, mm,
then you have to behave in a very certain way.
mm. Yeah,
And it's easier for you and me to say, okay,
yeah,
why do we have to lock everything down because of
yeah,
some old people? And
yeah.
so I do see everything from both sides, and I think that's also a part of my experience and
Mm,
education, and I think I'm being prepared for something. Um, and it was also very interesting having this look into politics and policies.
yes,
I have great respect for what they do, because
yeah,
wow, it's kind of a hardcore job. So
yeah.
yeah, no, I think I will
And
leave it at that.
also,
But
no, but
also
also,
in terms of you, Maria,
yes,
if I may ask you on your own podcast, what are you being prepared for? Because that seems to me that you are.
yes. So, a great question. Hold on. I was just going to check because there was something I wanted to share in terms of, I just wanted to see if, no, that's gone now. Okay. Okay. So just know that if I do this, this is my process. This is me processing or downloading or channeling, just because normally I don't do this on these calls, but if it happens, just so know. So the thing that I'm being prepared for, first of all, it's owning my mastery and also supporting other people owning their mastery, because I think that the more we own our own mastery, the more we're owning that we can be both the master and the student at the same time, that it's no longer about polarity, that it's no longer about good or bad or evil and angelic, but it's about the merging of that thing. I think that we're rising. That's part of the new world, or the new is about the oneness of things. So that's part of what I'm being called to, and to own, to step into my own mastery, to own that. And I do that through, first of all, I have, you can see some post-it notes here, but you can't see the whole wall. But right now, I'm actually creating a leadership training called the Spiritual MBA, because I want more leaders, executives to be whole and to have the tools to work with energy, to go within, to work with their senses, to have discernment, to come from their heart and their soul. And I'm also, because one of my intuitive senses come up in a business sense. So I don't see dead people. I see like if you were to start talking about Thürmer tools, I would start seeing connections. I would see opportunities for growth. I would see low-hanging fruits. So that's how my spiritual skills work. Like, they're very business-like. Yeah, like I said, I don't see dead people. I see connections. I see missions. And so supporting leaders in that, and then leaders in connecting and aligning with their truth, with their heart, and supporting them with the accountability to take the difficult steps to move forward, and being part of building what I essentially shared before, being part of building that structure that is coming from heart and from love, from connection, from community. And thus having solutions that are beneficial to not just the company and the people in it, but also the customers and their customers. So it spreads, like it ripples out. So that's what I'm
It seems
doing.
that the light is agreeing with you.
I know. This is like, but also we should have, like, this recording should have been over 45 minutes ago. Normally I would have pulled the drapes and everything, but I see the light, the light has appeared. So yeah, so that's what I'm being called to. And so in terms of, in terms of COVID, this, we're not going to go into this, but also one of the things that for me is very, we have a thing about dying and we have a thing about death. We have a thing about people are not supposed to die. People are, but the thing is, if, like, again, I go back to A Course in Miracles that has this quote that says, birth was not the beginning and death is not the end. Like there's a continuation that happens. And so while I am sad to lose, close people, but also I also recognize that they live on. And so we have this thing, I think we have this thing about death. But enough, because otherwise we won't ever win this recording. Erick, I want to say once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for showing up. Thank you for sharing so openly, so honestly, so just willingly. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And everyone, so there will be links in the descriptions to literally everything that Erick has shared, so you can go find those things in the description. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. That is what I had for you in today's episode of Mastery with Maria Serafina. I hope it served you well. For all the deeds and details, click the link in the description and help me spread the love of this transmission by sharing it with a friend or on social media, or leave me a comment or review. Have a wonderful day. God bless.